Hi there guys, welcome back to another video. My name is John Dean. Thank you for joining me in this special video where I'm going to be taking a look at some of the top key commands that I like to use in Final Cut Pro. Some of these are revolutionary that I picked up along the way that have really changed how I interact with Final Cut Pro. A lot of you are probably familiar with Final Cut Pro and you know that it uses a magnetic timeline, which is a bit different from other video editing tools like Premiere Pro and things like that. The magnetic timeline does take a lot of getting used to. It's got a lot of pluses, but especially when you're starting out, it can be like really frustrating and you just end up hammering your head against the wall trying to work out what on earth is going on with the magnetic timeline. I have a secret key command, the best key command when it comes to Final Cut Pro that you will want to know about. I am going to save it to the end of this video to try and convince you to watch the entire video, because this key command will change your life when it comes to editing on Final Cut Pro. You do not want to miss what I have to say. So stick around to the end and let's dive into the computer, fire it up and talk you through some of the best key commands that I've come across when using Final Cut Pro. Let's go. Okay everyone, so I've fired up Final Cut Pro and just opened up a demo project I've just imported some standard stock footage of a lady hugging a tree. Let me turn off the dual monitor actually so you can see it. So this is the person hugging a tree. The first one that I want to talk about is something that took me a little while to learn, but well, first of all, you've got Command B, which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar about. There's also a command, well, one thing that is important actually is that you'll find that you want to sort of move this around and annoyingly when you're starting out you sort of think, what is the magnetic timeline doing? It's not allowing me to move it. The way to initially get around that is to use the P button. So if you press the P command, you can now move it wherever you want, which is really useful. So definitely use the P tool if you get stuck. So if I wanted to delete that empty space, I can do that. So what you can actually do is hold down Command Alt and press the up arrow on your keyboard and it lifts it completely off the timeline, and obviously it keeps it in exactly the place where you had put it originally. So that's quite a useful tool, and equally speaking you can put it back down there as well. So you can press Command Alt and then the down button and you'll then pull that right down back onto the magnetic timeline. So that has been pretty useful, I have to say, in my sort of learning of Final Cut Pro. If we put two things there and you've got got two clips on top of each other and say you want to make a cut across all of them, now because we've got this top one selected, if we hit Command B, which is the blade tool, it will make a cut on that one alone. But say you wanted to cut the entirety of the clip completely, you can go Command Shift B and that will then cut everything. Now moving on from that, say you wanted to trim this clip down because it's overhanging, you want to make sure it's all lined up. Obviously what you can do is hit Command B and do that and get rid of it. But say you've got like multiple on there, it can be quite multiple layers, it can be quite time consuming if you're sort of doing that for like 5 rows upwards. So in order to so obviously what I mean by that is say this is overhanging slightly and we've got maybe several rows on top of each other and you wanting to trim it down so it's all in line. So obviously you can do Command Shift B and that will edit them all, and then you can select them all like that, press delete, and that gives you a nice tidy edit. Or another quick way of doing that is actually to highlight them all, and then what you can do is hit Option and then hit the brackets, close brackets button on your keyboard next to near the Enter key, the return key, and you can do that really quickly like that. So that's a really useful command that I've found to to be useful, because when you've got like multiple layers, it can be just infuriating to go through each one and trim them down individually. So that has been a huge blessing, shall I say. So yeah, just wanted to share that one. Next one, and I've done a whole video on this, you can actually copy and paste keyframes. So if we let's get this on the timeline. So I'm just going to hit Command Alt and down key again to put it onto the timeline. I'm then going to zoom in, which is a useful one, Command and plus, and obviously Command minus does the same thing, so you can zoom in and out. And say I wanted to zoom in, what I would do to do that is hit Control V, and that brings up all these parameters here, and I'm going to hit the position keyframe, I'm going to hit the scale keyframe to set where we're at. And say we wanted to do a fairly slow zoom, I would just zoom in like that on the lady hugging the tree, because we all need that in our life, don't we? Sometimes you've had a long day and all you need to do is hug a tree. So anyway, so if we play that back now, we've got a nice, actually it's a fairly quick zoom because it's a short clip. But say we wanted to copy that onto a separate clip. So if we bring her over here, we just paste it over there, and we lower into the magnetic timeline, and what we can do is copy that motion and bring it over to the other clip. So what we need to do is hit the select that keyframe, hold down the shift key and grab those other two keyframes as well, and now what we need to do is hit Alt, Shift and C on the keyboard, and that's copied the keyframes. It's a specific copy function for the keyframes only, and then we hit Control V, and then what we need to do is make sure that the transform panel selected, because it needs to, because we're obviously copying over from the transform panel to another transform panel. So we hit there, and then we do Alt Shift V, and we've pasted the keyframes. Now, a little thing which I didn't mention in the video that I did the other week on copying and pasting keyframes, which I discovered afterwards. If we hit play right now, I bet you it won't do anything at all. So play, no action at all, which you sort of think, what on earth, it hasn't worked. Now this might be because I'm using a slightly older version. I'm not on the bang up to date version of Final Cut Pro, because I'm on an old MacBook Pro, and I'm on 10.4.11 or something like that. So if you're on a newer version, they might have fixed this. And obviously I'm recording in 2021, so if you're watching in 2026 or something like that, it's probably not going to apply. But all you need to do to fix that, if you're experiencing the same thing, is literally just move the keyframe a little bit, and you can even move it back to where you want it. And if we hit play now, it's worked. So it seems to be just a little bug in Final Cut Pro that the keyframe side of things doesn't work. One thing that is important really is, say you've got two clips, or you've got multiple clips on top of one another, you want to keep things tidy ultimately. So the way to do that is select them all and hit Option G, and that creates a compound clip, which is basically a project, a mini project in your project, and we'll call it compound clip. And there we go, it's created a compound clip for you that you can now use, and it's actually created it in the Finder. Now on that note, say we've got a massive project here. Obviously this is quite a small project we've got going on, but if you sort of lost where you're at, you can always find an event or a sort of a clip on the timeline in your browser by hitting Shift and F. That will always take you to, that will basically highlight in the project where it is. So say we were on a completely different folder and we wanted to find this, we hit Shift and F and it takes you straight to it, which is really useful. And also say you wanted to just double check where that clip was on your computer. Say you've imported it, but you weren't sure if it was in the library or whether it is in some random location in some folder somewhere. You can always find where that is on your computer by hitting Command Shift and R, and that usually does it. Why isn't? Oh, it's because it's a compound clip. So let me just click upon a normal one. So if we, this is just a normal clip. So Command, Shift and R. There we go. It tells me exactly where it is. And on that note, I always like to make sure I'm importing everything I use within the library itself. So that way I can copy the library off, put it on another hard drive and archive it, and know that everything that I've actually got in there is saved within that library file. Because if you don't do that, then you'll end up with files absolutely everywhere, and when you come to open up an archive project, you would have lost your file and it would be on some random hard drive and it's gone. So just make sure when you're importing personally the way I like to work is that I copy everything to the library and delete anything that's downloaded from the internet and elsewhere once it's all imported into the library itself. Just keeps it clean. Make sure housekeeping's good in Final Cut Pro, so definitely worthwhile doing that. But that was a bonus tip anyway. So next, what I found useful on this note is, so we've now created our compound clip in there, but sometimes you're sort of later in the edit and you want to undo what you've done and sort of uncollapse that, so to speak. So there is actually a way of doing that. In order to do that, you would hit Command, Shift and V, and that's completely uncollapsed it again. It's still left the compound clip there, but it's at the same time completely collapsed it for you, and you can redo it again if you need to, but that can be quite a useful tool. Now this is a small one, but say you've got to the end of your project there, and there's basically a black space. Now it can be frustrating. What you can obviously do is just drag anything there, but you would then need to change it to the pen tool and drag some extra space. But say you just wanted some extra grey space there, believe me, that can be useful sometimes. You can hit the Alt W key and that creates a load of extra space for you, and is really useful, I found. So just to bear that in mind, really useful little trick, which sort of not showing you properly here, but trust me, you'll need it at some stage, I would have thought. Okay, so next one is, say you've got multiple timelines open and you want to flick between them. You can obviously do that through using the arrows, sort of bounce backwards and forwards. Nowadays you can even close other timelines. Before the fairly recent update, I don't think you could do that. I certainly spent ages trying to work that out, and then suddenly discovered it after an update. So you can close other timelines now, which is a really nice feature, whereas before you just were stuck with it. Basically you had to have them open. But say you wanted to flick between timelines, what you can do is hit Command and then close brackets to jump to the next one, or Command left brackets and you're back to the original one as well. What you'll obviously do a lot of the time is export things, and there'd be background tasks going on, like rendering or something like that. Although personally, as a quick bonus tip, I like to turn background rendering off in preferences, because it can just cause a lot of hassle. So I like to go to playback and turn off background render, because if you have it on, it will just be chuntering away, burning loads of external hard drive space, quite often unnecessarily as well. So definitely turn that off, I would say. But occasionally you'll have tasks going in the background, and you'll want to know what they are. Obviously what you can do is click on this button up here and sort of preview any actions or any tasks that are going. So if you're sharing your finalized project, it will be rendering it off in here, and you can see the progress in here. But if you wanted to access that quickly, you can hit Command 9 and that brings that up quite quickly. So that's always a nice feature, definitely. Sometimes you might import footage and the white balance is completely shot away, to be honest. In order to do a white balance really quickly, what you can do is hit Option Command B, and that will balance the color. It'll bring it up here once you've hit it, and you can hit white balance as well. You can even sort of set what you use the picker tool to select what the white look is in your image, and it will correct the image for you. This isn't a great example because it's obviously already balanced, but that can be really useful. So that's Command Option B, that will help you with that one. Now, one thing that that you might want to do is, say you're in the middle of your edit here and you want to get to the end of this clip. What you can do is hit the comma button, and that will take you to the end of the clip, and then say you wanted to add a gap, you would go back to the earlier key and use Option W, and that's created a massive gap for you, which is really useful. And say you wanted to go back to the start of that clip, you can hit the semicolon or colon button on your keyboard, and that will take you right back to the start, and you'll know you're on right at the beginning of whatever clip you're on. So if we do it on this one as well, can you use the colon button and go straight back to the beginning, or hit the comma button and go to the end. Oh, actually it's the, sorry, that's the next edit. So because it's there, that's the next edit there. So if we hit it again, it'll go to the end there, and then take us to the next cut basically. And then we can hit the end there. So it's not actually the end, it's the next edit, I should say. Apologies. And one useful thing is, now sometimes you obviously can move, say you wanted to move something, and you'll see it's all connected, but say you wanted to just sort of nudge it in small amounts. Without a key command, it can be really annoying because it sort of jumps. But say you want to nudge it, you can just use the full stop and the comma key and just do that. So if we hit full stop, it's nudged it one frame to the right, back one frame, back one frame. So comma for back, full stop for forward, comma for back, full stop for forward. It's a really useful tool to do precision sort of moving in Final Cut Pro, so definitely worth bearing that in mind. Now, I've got to the end of this video and I've saved the best to last, in my opinion, because this one is so important really if you want to move anything on the magnetic timeline, especially when you're starting out. You're sort of really frustrated because you want to move this freely, but it doesn't, you know, you can see it's all connected to these clips, and that's sort of a good thing about Final Cut Pro, is it sort of connects everything together. But it can be infuriating when you're starting out. So in order to get round, say you just wanted to move this clip on its own and leave these two clips in place, there is a way to do that. We can try using the pen tool, but what the pen tool does is exactly that, it carries those over, so that's no good. Now, one way of getting around it is hit Command Option and up, and now you can sort of freely move that around, but that's a bit cumbersome and not necessary actually. So just want to show you this key that has changed the way I use Final Cut, and it's like probably the best key command ever. You know, it's not necessarily very well known either, I don't think. There's a button, there's a little swirly button, I can't remember what it's called. It's like an ampersand. No, it's not an ampersand, it's a little swirly sort of squiggle. It's like a wavy squiggle. Let's call it the wavy squiggle key. You can press that down, hold it, and you can see there it's brought up a orange ball next to my mouse icon, and that ball is going to give me the power that I need in order to move things around. So I'm now going to shift it around, and you can see that it's actually left things connected. So if I move things there, it's sort of connected still, but it's enabled me, that ball has enabled me to freely move things on the timeline, and that is a lifesaver, I can tell you, because if you've got like multi-layers here, so say you've got like loads of audio under here, like music tracks, 15 layers of videos on top, it can be infuriating if you don't know that key command. So the fact you can now move anything on the timeline freely is just absolutely blissful. So that key command for me is the best kept secret in terms of key commands when it comes to Final Cut Pro. So wanted to finish on with that one, because ultimately if you know that, then you've got a lot of power when it comes to editing on Final Cut Pro. So if this video has been helpful, please do remember to hit the like and the subscribe button. That would be a blessing in disguise, I can tell you that. Thank you ever so much, you guys are amazing, and I look forward to catching you in the next video, because this video has been about 20 minutes long probably, so better cut it short here. But please do remember to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future releases that I put out regarding video and improving your online presence. Thank you for watching, take care, bye for now.